What fantasy race lives in total darkness, commits unspeakable war crimes, and looks like they're trying to bring back the goth movement? The answer is Drow. Drow are maybe the only elves that should have dark vision, given the fact that they live in the Underdark, which is just a giant cave system that they've convinced themselves is an underground nightclub scene. Listen, your civilization isn't some hidden gem that people are dying to get into, and in spite of them living in this literal hellscape underground, they'll act like you're the one living in a hole. They'll frown on surface dwellers for lacking sophistication, while they live in a fungus-covered cavern giving off toxic fumes and have to brush away about 1,000 spiders off their bed before going to sleep for the night. Let's make some things clear, suspicious webweaver. The only reason you constantly throw shade is because you're allergic to sunlight. Drow culture runs almost entirely on backstabbing others to gain a tiny bit more power, which makes every Drow government basically a multi-level marketing scheme where if you murder 2 of your friends and amass the power they got from murdering 2 of their friends, and repeat the process a couple of times, you eventually get to have the same quality of life that most surface-dwelling elves get without having to murder their entire extended family. It seems like Drow society treats betrayal like some kind of Olympic sport, because whoever betrays the most people is celebrated like a champion instead of a bad person. This must be great for more ambitious Drow, because whenever they go to the HR department to complain about their boss, the lady at the desk just hands them a poison dagger. But if you're even a slightly sane Drow, that means you have to skip town before anyone else catches on, because they'll confuse your humanity for weakness. Every Drow player claims to be a tortured anti-hero. Even if half the party is haunted by their past, the Drow will claim that only their edge is truly justified, which is a bit insulting to the half-elf rogue that has been brooding and monologuing in the dark corners of the inn way before people considered Drows as a playable character option. If you want to sit on the opposite side of the tavern as him, sharpening your daggers and muttering about your heritage, that is fine, but we respect our elders here. Either all of it is cringe or none of it is cringe, buddy. Wearing all black and having an ancestor who is the literal manifestation of evil isn't unique to Drow. In fact, I can probably name more fantasy races capable of having that backstory than I can't. And that is only because people keep telling me that gnomes aren't inherently evil, but I've seen the horrors that they inflict on campaigns. You can't fool me. Lolth is less of a deity to the Drow and more of an abusive cult leader that's entire thing is constantly telling her followers that they aren't doing enough. Like, let's talk about the fact that she'll randomly make 2 of her most loyal followers fight to the death and only give a temporary blessing and the ability to keep the loser's possessions as a reward. Killing off half of your most promising recruits doesn't really sound like an effective way to grow a religion or run a civilization. While elves are often mocked for being talented but not willing to do anything productive, I'd argue that Drow are just as talented and much more ambitious, but as a society, they constantly self-sabotage. Drow are better off worshipping the Dungeon Master at this point, because if they're already going to randomly kill and loot everything that their deity puts in front of them, then let their deity ban PvP among Drow and grant them blessings in the form of XP. The Underdark is basically just an infinite monster spawner, so there will be no shortage of targets to satisfy the Drow's bloodlust. Kick Lolth to the curb, give them a month or 2 without engaging in betrayal, and they'll level up enough to be able to conquer the surface world. I'm not saying that Drow culture is designed specifically to resemble a BDSM kink, but I am saying that if you were to create a fantasy race that does all those things, that you'd end up with something resembling the Drow, but hopefully with a lot less spiders. Call me a prude, but I like my bedroom completely free of spiders. I actually love the gothic aesthetic, and with everyone having dark vision, you can't really blame them for every temple being dimly lit. But anyone that has tried to use a whip inside an enclosed area knows that Drow have better weapon options for close quarters combat. You already know that I think that their Spider Queen isn't exactly a positive influence on Drow culture, but I like her influence on Drow society even less when I start to think about all her most loyal followers just being simps. Every Drow player will constantly let the party know that they are not like the others. Half the time, they end up still being evil for fun and have to be kicked out of the party, but they'll claim that their siblings were way worse, as if that excuse would let them off the hook for robbing every villager they come across. I get that Drow families can be rough, but the real reason that you left the Underdark isn't because you were a better person, it was because you were looking for easier targets. Luckily, the other half of the time, the Drow is actually telling the truth about being good. Somehow, they grew up with people trying to corrupt their heart of gold from a young age, and still came out the Underdark as a saint in the making. You know what that makes them though? Stubborn and foolish, because they aren't looking for a redemption arc for themselves. They're trying to redeem their entire people. Very rarely will you see a Drow be on a personal redemption arc to atone for their own sins. It's funny when you think about it, they are still betraying the other Drow, but this time it's because they are a good person. Drow like to commit atrocities and think they have perfected them. It isn't good enough for Drow to do evil things for personal gain. They have to pretend like their vile acts are part of a personal lifestyle brand. As much as I'm sure that a cosmetic brand called Sacrifice by Lolth could make a killing on the retail shelves just like it does in dark temples throughout the Underdark, people don't really care how on brand that spider-shaped knife is. That is cutting into their flesh. Drow will brag about their basic bad guy accomplishments like, "We massacred an entire city in the name of our goddess." Oh, so you're like the orc raiders that my party defeated at level 3? You know, just because your bad deeds are done in a way that looks expensive, that doesn't make them art, right? It just makes them extra. The truth is that the Drow under all that pageantry are just another faction in the Underdark that likes enslaving people and killing anyone who is dumb enough to travel near their settlements. In fact, if they hate their fellow houses and actively kill any merchants that try to come into town, I don't even know how the Drow have anything nice at all. Surely half the items circulating the Drow economy are actively harmful to the consumer, and the rest are cheap knockoffs. So yeah, Drow, everyone's favorite subterranean elf variant, and the drama queens of the Underdark. That think good taste makes up for bad actions. They may in fact be the hardest working elves in your campaign setting, but that doesn't mean that they're always working in the party's best interests. I'd avoid letting them take the first watch during your adventures on the road until you get a better idea of their motivations. If you manage to go a couple weeks without them stabbing someone to death that you told them not to, you're in luck. A Drow that's able to shake their murderous impulses is definitely a capable ally to have in your journeys. Just make sure to get them a stylish umbrella with a blade in the hilt to help them with their light sensitivity. A Drow will always respect something that can help them be functional and fashionable on the battlefield. Sure, they may use it off the battlefield too in order to get a cheap shot in, but you can't expect them to fully change their ways. That is why Drow are fantasy's most fabulous war criminals. If you liked the video, make sure to check out my other releases on the channel and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, you can use code LootGoblin at dnddice.com and get free shipping for purchases over $50, as well as free mystery dice sets when you place bigger orders. Be sure to check out the Lolth's Drow 11 dice set for your inner Drow Edgelord or any of the King of Crits exclusive designs. I'm a big fan of the Lich Lair dice tower and use their Plague Doctor dice in my own games. I hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now.